The NBA has always sold itself as more than just a league. It's been marketed as culture, emotion, honesty, and competition at the highest level. Fans don't just watch games, they invest trust. They believe that every missed shot, every clutch three, every blown call is part of the chaos of sport, not something planned in advance. But what happens when that trust starts to crack? What happens when fans begin asking a question the NBA never wants asked out loud? Is this game really clean? Over the past few months, whispers have grown louder. At first, they were brushed off as internet noise. A bad call here, a suspicious substitution there, a star player sitting out a must-win game for personal reasons. But then, patterns started forming. And when patterns form in a league worth billions of dollars, people start digging. Quietly at first, then loudly. And now, unavoidably, the NBA finds itself standing at the edge of what could become its most damaging controversy since the referee betting scandal of the 2000s. This isn't about one game. It's not about one player. It's not even about one team. This is about the growing intersection of professional basketball, legalized gambling, insider access, and the uncomfortable possibility that the modern NBA may be far more vulnerable to manipulation than fans ever imagined. Let's rewind for a moment. Over the last decade, sports betting transformed from something the NBA publicly opposed into something it openly embraced. Gambling ads flood broadcasts. Betting odds are discussed during halftime shows. Partnerships with sportsbooks are now normal. The league argues that regulation makes things safer, more transparent, more controlled. And on paper, that sounds reasonable. But critics argue something else, that by normalizing betting, the NBA created an ecosystem where temptation is everywhere and accountability is harder than ever. The first red flags didn't come from reporters. They came from bettors. People who track numbers for a living began noticing unusual movement. Point spreads shifting minutes before tip-off, player prop odds swinging wildly without public injury reports, role players suddenly underperforming in statistically bizarre ways. At first, sportsbooks adjusted quietly, but when the same patterns kept appearing across different markets and different games, the questions got harder to ignore. Then came the leaks. Anonymous league employees posting cryptic messages, former staffers hinting that certain information travels faster than fans think, insiders suggesting that non-public details about rotations, minutes restrictions, and locker room tensions were circulating outside team walls. Nothing concrete at first, just enough smoke to make people wonder if there might be fire. What makes the situation explosive is how modern NBA teams operate. Today's organizations are massive. Video coordinators, analytics departments, medical staff, personal trainers, third-party contractors all touch sensitive information. Who's actually hurt? Who's fighting through pain? Which stars checked out mentally? Which coach plans to experiment with lineups? In the wrong hands, that knowledge isn't just power, it's money. As the noise grew, so did the league's anxiety. Quiet memos were reportedly sent to teams reminding them about information security. Players were warned again about gambling associations. Front offices tightened internal access. But none of this stopped the public from noticing something else. The NBA never denied that there was a problem. It simply kept saying it was monitoring the situation. Fans began asking uncomfortable questions. Why were certain players suddenly ruled out minutes before games with vague explanations? Why did some late-game decisions seem to ignore obvious basketball logic? Why did certain teams appear to benefit consistently from officiating trends that aligned perfectly with betting lines? These questions spread across social media, podcasts, and YouTube channels faster than the league could control. And then came the moment that changed the tone completely. Reports surfaced that federal authorities were reviewing betting data connected to professional sports, including NBA games. No names were officially confirmed, no charges announced, but the implication alone was enough to shake the league. Because once federal eyes get involved, this stops being about image and starts being about survival. The NBA's biggest nightmare isn't that one person did something wrong. It's that multiple people might have had access to just enough information to quietly influence outcomes without ever touching the court themselves. Not rigging games outright, but nudging them, steering minutes, managing effort, exploiting gray areas that are nearly impossible to police. Think about it. A coach doesn't need to lose on purpose. He just needs to experiment. A player doesn't need to miss shots intentionally. He just needs to play through fatigue. A ref doesn't need to fix a game. He just needs to call it tighter on one end. None of this leaves a smoking gun, but all of it moves numbers. And in the betting world, numbers are everything. The NBA insists that integrity remains intact. And to be fair, there's no public proof that games are fixed. But history teaches us something important. Sports scandals are almost never discovered because leagues are transparent. They're exposed because someone talks, someone gets caught, or someone gets greedy. What's making fans nervous now is how silent everyone has gone. Star players avoid the topic entirely, coaches deflect questions, analysts change subjects. When a league built on storytelling suddenly stops telling stories, people notice. The timing also couldn't be worse. The NBA is pushing global expansion, chasing younger audiences, and competing directly with other entertainment platforms. Trust is its most valuable currency. Lose that, and everything else starts to crumble. Ratings drop, sponsors hesitate, fans disengage. And once skepticism takes root, it's almost impossible to reverse. Some former players have started speaking carefully, choosing their words like landmines. They talk about protecting the game, about how gambling has changed the atmosphere, about how today's environment is very different from when they played. None of them accuse, but none of them sound surprised either. And here's where things get really uncomfortable for the league. Even if no major scandal explodes tomorrow, the perception alone may already be doing damage. Fans are replaying games differently now. They're watching not just for highlights, but for anomalies. Every blown call becomes suspicious. Every collapse feels questionable. Once fans stop giving the benefit of the doubt, the product itself changes. The NBA knows this. That's why behind the scenes, there's talk of stricter information controls, limiting who can access injury data, delaying certain disclosures, auditing communication channels. Some even suggest the league may eventually restrict certain types of betting partnerships to protect credibility. But critics argue that these steps are reactive, not preventative. There's also a deeper philosophical problem here. The NBA wants to be both an entertainment product and a regulated competition. Gambling blurs that line, because once money is attached to every possession, every decision carries financial consequences far beyond the scoreboard. That pressure doesn't disappear just because rules exist. Fans are split. Some say this is overblown paranoia fueled by social media. Others believe the league has already crossed a line it can't walk back from. And then there are those in the middle, fans who love the NBA but feel uneasy, conflicted, unsure what to believe anymore. What makes this situation so compelling and so dangerous is that it doesn't need a dramatic ending to matter. Even if no major superstar is ever charged, even if no headline explodes tomorrow, the doubt itself may already be the story. Because sports survive on belief. Belief that effort is real, that outcomes are earned, that when a player hits a game winner, it means something pure. Once that belief erodes, no amount of marketing can replace it. The NBA is standing at a crossroads. One path leads to transparency, reform, and hard conversations. The other leads to denial, damage control, and hoping the noise fades. History tells us which path usually ends badly. And now the question isn't whether something controversial is happening around the NBA. The question is whether the league is prepared for what happens if the truth, whatever it is, becomes impossible to hide. Because once fans start asking if the game is real, the game itself is already in trouble. And that's the real controversy no highlight reel can distract from.